Hey everybody, welcome back to the Connection Project here with Sally for a new week and a new guest. And I'm excited this week to be talking to Brenda Winkle, who again, my latest guest, I have not really met. So this is our real first conversation together, but I have been watching for her from afar and actually met her from afar at a pause breathwork training last year. And so I follow her and all her doings. And so Brenda is a coach. She's an energy healer. She helps people say yes to the things that light them up and no to the things that don't. Blending the science of breathwork and somatic coaching with intuitive energy healing. And I see a lot of her stuff. Say yes to yourself. And so Brenda, welcome so much. And I'm always excited when I'm talking to people that I know, but then there is like this real excitement about talking to people that I don't really know on a deep level, but I've been watching your stuff and I know that you have a love of breath work and somatics and energy like I do. And I'm really launching this month, gonna be launching a membership. And I really wanted to bring in healers that are doing this work and have this passion for breath work and energy work and the things that I think are going to be able to change us as a culture, as our consciousness, and not to get too woo on my audience, but they know I'm a little woo, but really to up level in a way that I didn't think was possible. And so I'm just super excited to spend this next month to 6 weeks talking to all of you guys that are making so much change within your community spaces. So welcome, Brenda. I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
Hey, Sally, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to get a chance to have a conversation because, like you said, we've been in each other's orbits for more than a year now, and kind of seeing what you're doing in the space, and I'm just so excited to get a chance to really connect.
Love it. Love it. So usually I start with my guests just talking about like what does connection mean to you? Because it's so interesting. Everybody that comes on, they have like a different thought about connection, right? And so when I put this together, it was really about my disconnection with myself and technology. And even though I love technology, that's how we're here today. But there is something when I go out to dinner and everybody's on their phones and people aren't communicating with each other. There's like this disconnect, but then this pull to connect back together. And so I always find it very interesting to find out what even connection means because it does sometimes mean different things to different people. And so we'll start there. And then I'd love for you to dive into like how you even got here with all this amazing work you're doing.
Well, the word connection is something that has been at the forefront of my mission for a while. And the reason that connection feels so important to me is when we're disconnected from ourself, from our loved ones, from our community, there's this isolation that we feel. And I think that with the absence of connection, it's easy to feel lonely, even if we're not alone. So, connection is what I feel like unifies us as humans. It is the thing that allows us to share our lives, to share our hopes, our dreams, our sorrows. It's a way that we can really show up as humans, sharing heart to heart with each other. And if we don't have the ability to connect to ourselves, then we also don't have the ability to connect with others.
Beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So, kind of, can you take us back to how you started your whole journey? And we're here to talk about breath work, but I also know that you are an intuitive energy healer. You do a lot with energy work, it seems like to me. And how you even got down this path. Like, how do we even get here? Sometimes I wonder that about myself. Like, oh, how did I even get here?
Well, it's like everything where the road was not straight. There was lots of turns and winds and detours. And I think probably the place that makes the most sense to start would be back in 2007. In 2007, I was returning home from a Mary Kay leadership conference. I was a Mary Kay sales director, and my daughter at the time was like 4.5 years old. And I was coming back from this leadership conference, and I felt completely lit up and energized and excited. And I just felt like every dream was going to come true. And I got off the plane and I was still feeling pretty good as I walked through the airport. I came out through the gates of security and I saw my family standing there and my heart sank. And it wasn't because I wasn't happy to see them. I was happy to see them, but I realized that I had created a life that was filled with people pleasing and settling for less than I really wanted. And that the person who had gotten off the plane was living a different life than the person who was walking out the airport doors. And that contrast was heartbreaking for me. And, I grew up in northwestern Nebraska in a tiny town called Shadron. And my parents were both music educators and they were really good at what they did. And so it was natural for me to become a music educator. So the whole reason I found myself in the Mary Kay world was I was taking a little break from music education, trying my hand at being a stay-at-home mom. And the thing that the Mary Kay community gave me that I'd never had before was belief in myself. I never had a community of women who were telling me that I was worthy, telling me that I was enough, telling me that I could do it. And the way that I felt around my Mary Kay sisters and directors was just like I could do anything. And I think that's what was so appealing to me about it. But as I got off this plane and realized that I had created a life just full of compromises, a way that I was playing it small. I was pretending like I didn't have any needs at all. I didn't even know myself anymore at that time. And so I ended up leaving that marriage and went on a big healing journey after I was living in a domestic violence shelter for a couple of months. And my healing journey was a little bit of like self actualization, like taking myself for a walk every day, going to yoga class. And through those things, I realized, oh, I have this body. Like this body feels a way. And when I am able to actually feel into my body, my heart doesn't hurt so much.
Mm.
And so it all started through that. And then in 2015, about 8 years later, I discovered Reiki. And I went in for a session that my friend offered me for free. She's like, come try it. Because she asked me if I knew what Reiki was, and I did not. I was like, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. And I was like, I have to have more of this in my life. So within the next year, became a Reiki master and then studied other different energy healing modalities like theta healing and clendening, and still was working full time as a music educator this whole time. And I needed a way to manage my stress. And so I took some of the breath that I was learning in yoga into my classroom. And I noticed that the behavior problems disappeared, that my students were learning better, they were retaining more information, their stress level was definitely decreasing, and so was mine. So
Mm.
I knew that the breath helped. I did not know it was called breath work. In fact, if you would have told me that there was a job for breathwork people, I would have mocked you for sure. For sure.
I know.
Yeah. And so then in like 2021, I met our mentor, Samantha Skelly, and I met her through a mastermind that she came in to do breathwork for. And I had done a breathwork session that year earlier in person in Florida. And I was like, yeah, this is okay, but I don't love it. Well, that was not the case when I breathed with Sam. I was like, what is this? I have to have more. I felt like I had laid out 10 years of trauma in one breathwork session. It was like the best therapy ever. Next thing you know, I was signing up to become a breathwork facilitator, even though I promised myself I wasn't going to do any more certification programs. And I didn't even want to be a breathwork facilitator. Didn't really know what breathwork was, but I signed up and it completely changed my life. I left the teaching world in 2022 and I've been full time in my business ever since. And it is literally the best decision I ever made.
My God. I know it's crazy, isn't it? Just a fun fact for my audience too, and everybody. I was also a Mary Kay person.
I did not know that.
A
That's so
small
cool.
moment of time. I think like 2 years. And it's so funny because that is like not my MO at all. But yeah, I did a little Mary Kay. And it was an interesting environment of probably the first time too that I was like, brought into that environment of like that, building each other up. But that
Hmm.
was a short
Hmm.
stay for me. But I just always had to say that. It was so funny. But yeah, the breath work, I was using it with my clients. Once I left my job, and you've probably heard my story, I left my job. I don't want to repeat all that, but I was using yogic breath work because credentialing certification I took, that's what we were doing with our clients. We were using, it was based in doshas and yogic breath work and rewiring and inner child at a vibrational level. And so I had already been a Reiki master. And so I was using this alternate nostril breathing and some Ujjayi breath. And because, I was trying to bring meditation to my clients because what I was using with them was a lot of meditation stuff, a lot of mantra work. And I was finding that people were pretty resistant. They were like, I can't meditate. Like, it's just that automatic resistance.
Hmm.
And then I feel like I always say this, that breath is a little bait and switch because
Yeah.
they're giving their mind something to think about with the breath, whether it's a yogic breath or it's a long journey or whatever we're doing, your mind has something to think about. And then before you know it, for most people, they're able to get under. Some people still have that resistance because they feel unsafe or all the things that come up for people. But yeah, when I signed up for the breathwork training at Pause also, I was like, I'm not taking another cert, which, is a joke because that's all I do. And I was resistant in the beginning. The first couple of months, I was like, I shouldn't have done this. This is too much, blah, blah, blah. But I knew that that was my own body's resistance. And then life starts to transform on a way that
Yeah.
I wasn't sure it could. And I had done other work, but I have to say that breath work and then combined with energy work,
Hmm.
it's like,
That's right.
it's just mind blowing. I don't even know what else to say. I almost get speechless sometimes around it because it's an experience. So there are people that are like, breath work, what is, and I'm a coach, but I have really been starting to focus a lot of my practice on breath with my coaching and everything else because it's
Hmm.
this modality, again, combined with my energy healing, that I feel like gets people on this level that we're not able to touch with all the other things.
I agree. Totally agree. And I think that, even with energy healing, there's a place for it. And I love it.
Mhm.
I still use energy healing. I think Reiki's probably foundational
Right.
in what I do. And it's so helpful, especially if somebody comes in with a certain level of trauma where they're not able to speak or access any of the conversation around it. I think that that can be super healing with breath work and with Reiki or energy healing of any other kind. But, the thing about the breath is, yes, there's breath work that you can do in 2 minutes or 4 minutes, and it really does make a difference physiologically. And we can measure that using scientific labs and just, anecdotal evidence with blood pressure cuffs and different things like that. But when we're taken in a breathwork session, like a 30-minute or a 60-minute session, the changes that happen and the ways that we can shed things are unbelievable. And they're unlike anything else I've ever experienced. And there's
Mhm.
something about, it's like that book, The Body Keeps the Score
Mhm.
by Bruce Lipton. It's like that. We're releasing all these traumas and all the stuck emotionality that our bodies have stored for decades. And we don't even know that they're stored there. We just think our hip aches, or we think that, oh, my arm is stiff, or I can't lift my shoulder. Many times it's just that stuck emotionality. And over the course of consistent breathwork practices, all of a sudden we notice, hey, I'm not in pain emotionally or physically.
I know. It's amazing. And you guys, if you're looking for that book that Brenda just mentioned, The Body Keeps the Score, it's Vessel Vanderkork. I always say his last name wrong.
Oh, did I say the wrong author?
Lipton.
I
Yeah, no,
I said
listen,
Bruce Lipton.
I knew
That's
you just combined something.
Yeah. That book I was mentioning with Bruce Lipton is What Happened to You.
Yes.
He co-wrote it with Oprah. So you're right. The Body
Yes,
Keeps
what
the
happened
Score
to you
is,
or something, yes. But
yeah.
there are so many things out there for the listeners if you're thinking about this because there was a lot to be said in the beginning about, breath, it's woo, or like, she's spiritual, so she's bringing this to me, but it's not. I mean, there's so much data now. There's so many books. There's so much
Mhm.
science behind breath and what Brenda's talking about. I mean, it is amazing. I'm actually working in a small kind of rural community right now where breath has like just taken off.
Mm.
They, I don't even know what's happening up there because I feel like it's
I
some
don't I
some
don't know where you're
magic.
located.
it's like
Where do you live?
I'm in upstate New York.
Oh, okay, beautiful. I am traveling
Um,
full time. At the moment, I'm in coastal Washington. I'm on the Long Beach Peninsula.
I have not been, well, that's not true. I've been to Seattle, yeah. I mean, that's beautiful out there. So I'm on the
It's
other
really,
side
really
of the
pretty.
country, but I always say upstate New York because New York, then they think I'm in New York City, but I'm not in New York City. I'm like 4 hours north, 3.5, 4 hours north. So I'm kind of in the country. But yeah, I've been breathing this small community. They have embraced this, and the changes that are happening in that community are just unbelievable. Like even when I go to the sessions each week, I just think, what is happening in this room? Like what is
Mm,
And so for the listeners, like it's hard to like when you hear us talk about that, you don't even, but so you have to experience it.
right.
And then sometimes, listen, sometimes people come to a session and they're just not ready because there is a deep healing piece around it, and you have to somewhat feel safe and be somewhat ready. But I think once you are, the transformation that I'm seeing with people, and it sounds like you are too, is just I don't know.
Well,
I
and there's a titration that happens, right? So there's a responsibility on the part of the breathwork facilitator to allow someone to come in wherever they are
Mhm.
and then to move them in a safe way into those spaces. Is it possible that you'll try breathwork the first time and not have a transformational experience? Yeah, it is, depending on what other things are happening in your body, what other things have happened in your life. It might be that you just feel really relaxed for 30 or 60 minutes. It might be that transformation comes further down the road. But I do think that that it's important to mention that the experience needs to be titrated. We don't
Yes.
want to blow the doors off of somebody and and make them think that breath work is like going to take them to the next level. I've heard of a style of breath work and I won't name it, but that, people are crying and writhing and all the things where they're really like blown wide open. And I know that that's a very popular breathwork style and it is transformational. And also, in my opinion, it can traumatize people.
Mhm.
And so I'm very cautious, and I know you are too, because we were trained in the same way. I'm very cautious to allow the person's body to guide the session,
Mhm.
meaning I'm not going to push someone further than they're ready to go.
I love that you brought that up because that is an integral part of what we do, especially the way we were trained. And you do see a lot, and I'm not gonna say more than that, but you see a lot, especially if you are in the self-development world and you're online, you see a lot. And to each his own. But I have to say, the way we were trained, I really am seeing this transformation. And I really try to say to people, listen, I'm just guiding you tonight. So you
Mhm.
can come 7 times in a row. I literally could play the same music and I could have just a audio of my voice giving the same guidance and cues, and you are going to have a different experience each time.
That's right.
Your
That's
body
right.
is going to come in a different place.
Mhm.
And so you will not have the same experience every time. You one night, you may come and just relax. One time you may come and be like, it may be your first time, and you may be like, I don't really know like what this is. That's also fine. You may see a past relative. You may have a psychedelic experience. You may have this experience, but that doesn't mean if the guy next to you had that experience and you didn't, that's wrong. There is no right or wrong, right? We
That's right.
want to bring it to where we are, meet them where they are, have them start to learn how to meet their body where it is. And I always say to people, part of my mission is to bring breath everywhere. But part of my mission is also to really bring people back to their body, right? All this somatic work. And I know there's a lot
Mhm.
of buzz about somatics, but I mean, there is so much about bringing you back to your body and how because what's going to work for me may not work for you, Brenda Winkle. It may be different, right? What's going to work for me? What's going to take me to that next level of healing? It may be different than you. I may have to go a lot slower.
That's right.
And that's perfectly fine. I'm so glad you brought that up about the titration. And that's what I try to tell my clients in one-on-ones but in group sessions, because everybody's in a different place. So I have a friend who's like, I don't see all this stuff. I'm like, you're not, your body is just not ready to, or in this space to like see all that, right? Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I do a
That's
lot of
right.
work and I don't see a lot, I feel a lot. So sometimes, yeah, when I'm with another healer, practitioner, and they're like, oh, I saw this and this, and I'm like, oh, I do have that little ego that says, but I am convinced, and I don't even remember, I think I've heard this in a couple different places that, the gifts are brought to us when we're ready to have the gifts. And so I feel a lot in my sessions. I don't necessarily see a ton of things because that's just not where I'm at. And I have learned to become like, that's okay because this is where I am in my facilitation journey, in my own healing journey. And so what's been great about breath is that titration. I don't know what it was that Sam said, and I always use this, but intensity does not equal transformation.
That's right.
It
And,
does.
to your point about whether you see it or feel it, you're also talking about the intuitive knowing
Mhm.
that is accessed through the breath. And when we talk about intuition, there are about 18 doorways that intuition has that it can come through. So we've got the six clairs, meaning seeing, feeling, hearing, tasting, touching. I'm missing one. But then we've also got the empath doors. And so what you're speaking about is perhaps you feel because that's where your natural gifts lie, where someone else sees because that's where their natural
Right.
gifts lie.
Right.
And so as we access the intuition, it's going to look different for everybody. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
reality. And
Yeah.
so there's nothing wrong with having a different experience than somebody else.
Right. But where our ego gets in there and we're like, I'm not having this amazing experience because in the shares at the end, everybody in my groups, I allow them to share. Some people are going to share, some people are not going to share. Some people have this like
Mhm.
just this really this, the psychedelics without the psychedelics, some people are having these incredible experiences when they're tapping in, and other people are just coming and resting, and they're both perfect the way they are. And allowing
Yeah.
us, like I was a person that was not able to like, I always say I'm like the comparison queen that has been working on that for a while, comparing myself to other people. And so I really try to bring that to my groups and my individual sessions. Like this is not, we're leaving all that at the door. Like we're not
Yeah, that's it.
here.
I'd be curious to know how this hits for you, but if I go into a session with a certain outcome in mind, like I am going to have a psychedelic experience,
Yeah.
I almost never do. When I
No.
go in with like just a general intention, like I'm going to rest and recharge, or I'm going to try to tap into my intuition, then sometimes I'll go on this beautiful journey. But the controlling outcome piece almost never works for me. How does that land
Oh
for
no,
you?
it doesn't work for me. Listen, I've sat with ayahuasca and the plants have told me numerous times that I always go with one intention, and letting go of control for me is a big thing. So I try not to have a lot of control when I'm breathing. I just try to, for me personally, I try to go in with an open mind. I have my clients set intentions. I set an intention for the group for the highest good. But for me personally, letting go of control is something I've been working on. So the less attachment I have to what's going to happen and just let things come out. I have a girl right now that's actually in pause finishing up. She was a client of mine and a peer of mine years ago. We reconnected, was a client of mine, and then now she's, we're peers again. And I've been doing her practicum hours with her, and I went for a session, we started talking, so then time went short. So I was pretty like revved up when I got in this session, and we must have only breathed for 15 minutes. And I left there on Zoom and I was just like jelly. I mean, for the listeners, again, it's just unbelievable to me how even 15 minutes can just completely bring my nervous system to a place that it wasn't 15 minutes prior. The journeys are one facet, smaller sessions are another facet. Just breath is, a whole nother thing. Like I tell my people in sessions, like if you're out to dinner with friends or relatives and someone's getting under your skin, right? Like we hope that we don't allow the external to bother us as much. That's been part of my work too. But that's a reality, right? We're living life, and that happens sometimes. You can't really go in the bathroom and meditate, but you surely can go in the bathroom and do 2 rounds of breath in the
That's
stall
right.
and come
That's
out
right.
differently. I mean, you can take it anywhere. You don't, you know, the journeys are one piece of the breath, which are transformational for inner healing. But breath has the facets of like, from 1 to 100 of what we're doing with it. And so there's a piece of it for everybody.
Mhm. And there's no barrier to entry.
No.
Everybody breathes.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, yeah. And to your point, if you're out to dinner and you're with a bunch of people and you notice yourself getting activated, you can even take some deep breaths right there at the table. You don't have to leave to go to the stall unless need to do some big sighs or something.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's best to go to the bathroom stall instead of doing that at the table.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's true though. It's true. You can take it anywhere and just making people aware. I mean, I'm a nurse for 30 years. And like when I started the journey, I was like, how I knew that breathing with a patient calms them down, right? But
Mhm.
I didn't really have a name for some of it. I knew that the energy,
Mm.
like they're feeding off of my energy if I'm calm versus the nurse that comes in the room and that is all hyped up. But I didn't really truly understand all of that and how it was connected and how we should be using that all the time. I mean, that this is in healthcare,
Mhm.
this is what should be happening. I mean, this should be part of physician training and nursing training.
Yeah.
And we breathe with people and that's trained, but we're really not brought into the level of like what we understand of breath work.
Yeah, same for education because I
Oh,
was using it in classrooms. And the interesting thing was I didn't send kids to the principal because we handled everything in-house because all they really needed was acknowledgement and breath. And so if a kid ended up in the principal's office, it was because they made a choice to go, not because I sent them. They were like, I just need a break. I need, quiet time because I taught music. So sometimes it could be a lot on
mhm.
somebody's nervous system if there was too much sound. But we live in this society where we're educating kids and we are not teaching them to think. We're not teaching them how to regulate their nervous systems. And if we can get teachers on board, teachers will feel better, teachers will last longer in the profession, and kids will benefit too, very much like what you're talking about with the medical profession.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many people that can benefit. And
Yeah, I can't think of one that wouldn't benefit.
no, no, no. I mean, I think about in healthcare at the bedside, but then in leadership, like everybody needed to be breathing, honestly, because you start to show up differently, right? Maybe
That's right.
talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you saw your students showing up differently in the classroom, which is amazing because I want people to understand that this isn't just about something we do as coaches, right? So this is like can come into every aspect of your life. And so maybe talk
Mhm.
a little bit about what you're seeing with your clients and in your own life, like what has transpired for you. You talked a little bit about your students, which I'm so glad that you brought that forward because I know sometimes people are only thinking, how will this help me as an adult? What will help with that? So maybe just touching on that a little bit.
So I work with people who are typically 35 and older. I work with younger people if they would want to work with me, but my gifts are really helping people in the stages of life as their kids are growing up and they're a lot of times people come to me because they have said yes to everything and everyone in their whole lives. They're very good at what they do. They're highly successful in their careers. And they get to this point where they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm saying yes to everything except for what I actually want. And so the people that I work with often come to me because they have a dream that is inside them and they're almost itchy about the dream, but they don't know how to bring the dream in and keep the life that they have. So, an example, I have a client who came to me because she knew she wanted to get her voice out into the world. And she didn't know if that meant podcasting or writing. She had a background in marketing and she was very successful in her career as marketing executive, but she just kept having this urge to share her voice. And through working with her, I have a program and a healing and coaching program called Second Chapter. This one's for you. And in Second Chapter, with the combination of the breath work and the energy healing and the recorded modules, she has discovered that she wants to write books and give sermons. And so she's actually giving sermons, live sermons in church, and her church is actually now scheduling in advance for those sermons to happen. And she just feels so lit up. And she's now teaching in her teenage daughter's volleyball team self-regulation. So she teaches little examples of breath work and little examples of some mindset work so that the kids can help calm themselves down and energize themselves before a game. And it's just so inspiring to watch her figure out exactly what it is that she wants to do and then to be taking steps to do it. I have another client who started working with me because of debilitating neck and back pain. And she didn't want anything except to not be in pain. And she was in so much pain that she would come home and take pain medication right after work, which would put her out for the rest of the evening. So she wasn't able to engage in her family life at all. And she felt like she was missing out and feeling very lonely and isolated and, in pain. And through the breath work and the energy healing, and she actually has taken my Reiki trainings, she's not on pain meds at all.
It's
She is
amazing.
pain free, and now she's opening a Reiki business, and she plans to leave her corporate job within the next year to work Reiki full time. And so, I really think that this would not have happened without the breath work to help heal the mind, body, and spirit.
It's so amazing. So
Yeah,
just
it is.
hearing those stories on what we see with our clients, with our family members. My husband recently, he's in healthcare, very science driven, and he just for the first time came to a breathwork session. I've done Reiki on him when I was training, but I really had held off doing breath work because I just knew I was gonna, I was just like, you have to come to a group session. Like I have to be like completely in my zone in the group session, not just worrying about him for my own self, I felt. So he finally came and he was like, my God. I think he was a little nervous to come too, but he was like, wow, like that was pretty amazing. And it's just start to ripple out, like that ripple effect when we start to heal,
Mhm.
right? We've done our
Mhm.
own, start to do our own healing work, and maybe you can talk a little bit how it's helped, that for you more. I mean, I had to do a lot of inner child healing work, and breath work has definitely brought me to that peace. And sometimes for me, what I see too with clients is they don't even know what inner child healing is. But in the
I
session,
didn't.
yeah, and so in the group, and I didn't either. Like in the beginning, I thought everything was everybody else's issue. I really didn't even, I knew what my childhood was like, but I also didn't really focus on it, or I didn't think I was focusing on it. But yet I was showing up. I was being triggered all the time. I was showing up very, very masculine, very in control, have to control everything. I didn't understand what all that was, right? So when we're like that, when we're being triggered and we're in fight or flight, for the audience, sometimes you can show up a certain way in your life. And for me, that was a lot of attacking, defensive, victimizing myself, and not really addressing like what happened to me and how I ended up, from point A to point B. And so I love in the breathwork sessions, in the group sessions, especially, and in the one-on-ones, just dropping little nuggets about inner child. And just because then I'm able to get an idea of like, who wants to know more about that? Who's open?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what connects subconsciously? Because it's not connecting, it doesn't connect with everybody because everybody is in their own process, right? You mentioned it. We're meeting them where they are. So what I love about the way we guide breath work specifically is you're bringing certain things up, but you're just kind of just bringing them in the most gentle way. And then I'm sure your people have said this to you. They think we're speaking directly to them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a group of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I have to take a sip of water, sorry.
Yeah. So, with the inner child healing, I had heard that term before and I really didn't understand what it meant. And I was sort of mocking it, which I think that might be my go-to for stuff I don't understand, is I just mock it. um, then as I did the somatic coaching program and became a certified somatic coach, in addition to the breathwork facilitator, I realized that I had child parts that were running the show. The child parts would be the reason that every time I went to my family of origin, I turned 13, whether I was 50 or actually 13. And when I gave that child part, that 13-year-old girl, the love, acknowledgement, and attention that she needed, she is still part of me. It's not like I've, banished her. She's still part of me, but she's not the one making decisions. She's not the one talking to my family when I'm with my family of origin. And because I'm speaking from my fully evolved woman and not my 13-year-old girl, all of the relationships in my life are improving. They're richer. And there's a depth that has occurred with all of my friendships and all of my family relationships because I'm acknowledging these inner parts. So I had a 13-year-old, I have a mentor who says, we don't just have one inner child, we've got a whole preschool down there. So
We do.
we
She or
do.
he
So
is right.
yeah. And so, I think that when we talk about inner child healing, it's really important to acknowledge this is not going to be a one and done thing. It's not like you're going to heal your inner child in this 1 hour session. That's not how this stuff works. And anybody who tells you different, run. They're not the practitioner for you because inner child healing is layered and it
So
takes
layered.
time. And, I've been in the healing world since 2015. And I'm still finding new layers and levels in my own healing journey. And kind of think that when we get to the end of our healing journey, that might be when we're at the end of our incarnation on earth. Honestly, I think that there's just like this continual learning and growing and evolving that happens. And that when we approach healing as though it's an ongoing process and not a box to be checked, it can create a little bit more ease in our systems as we change the expectation from I'm going to check the box, I'm going to heal my inner child, ta-da, I'm done, because
Yeah.
that's not actually going to happen, to I'm going to try to speak from my fully evolved woman most of the time.
Yeah.
That that
She's,
that's a goal.
she or he is still going to come out.
That's right.
I'm at least aware now, like that she's coming out usually, usually as soon as she starts to come. Sometimes it's a little later, and then I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, learning to love on those pieces and breathwork definitely, I've done other work, but breathwork was always a bit infused. I do a process called soul retrieval, and um and it's really going into some vibrational levels and getting to that like root issue. But just because you've excavated one root issue, she might have been 13, she might have been 7,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
You're
that
right. Or
doesn't
might have
mean
even
we're
been
not
pre-verbal.
right. Or we may, but we're gonna see her again. I'm
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed we're gonna see her again, just in a different experience.
That's right.
And the experiences aren't always the most traumatic experience that you're thinking of. It can be like just one little small event that it's not even something you're thinking about when you go in, and that's a whole nother conversation for
That's
another
right.
day.
That's
But
right.
but I love to just bring it. And through breath work, I have found that I can bring these little nuggets so that people are like, because everybody's not ready for that kind of healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And their subconscious, their body knows, right? Their body knows when they're coming to us what they're ready to receive or what they're ready to deal with. And that is why I loved our training so much, because it brought me on a level. And I know we're not here to just talk about pause, but I think most of us that come out of that training for us feel really lucky to have gone through that training, because it just allowed me to really ground and align with myself and what my passion is, and
Mm-hmm.
bring that to other people so that they can decide for themselves where they're at and where they want to start their healing journey. And if it's just breath work
Well,
or if it's something else, and they're making
yeah.
a decision, we're just guiding them.
That's right. And the point of what you're saying is that in order to be really effective healers, we had to go on our own healing journey. And that's why I so appreciate the length of time of that container. Because if we would have gone to a weekend training, there's no way that we could have excavated all the things that we had the opportunity to excavate within that program. And I think that that's why our clients are receiving the transformations that they're receiving, is because our energy is clean
Mhm.
and we've done enough healing that we're now 2 or 3 steps ahead, which is the benefit of going into a longer container for that training.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I say that to people when I suggest that training. I mean, everybody has to make their own decisions, but I think
Hmm.
that that training really helped because I had to do my own healing. And each time that I say to myself, I thought I healed that, she seems to she seems to come back and remind me that I still have a little more work to do around that. And I have really have started to learn to accept that this is like you said, this is, we are going to be moving through this process while we're here on Earth. That's how I
That's
feel.
right. Hmm.
And I have become okay with that and finding things that work for me and having self-awareness because the goal is not perfection. I mean, I lived like
Hmm.
that, wanting perfection, which is not achievable. And so it's not going to be achievable in the healing environment, in the self-healing environment. We just have to go on a journey and see where it takes us. And breathwork has been a place that I just think for most clients of mine and myself, and I know for you that there isn't even a lot of talk involved in that, right? I'm
Hmm.
guiding, they're just breathing. And that is beautiful because they don't have to get all caught up in their ego. They're just allowed to breathe and connect on a level that I think most people are just so surprised in the beginning about.
Hmm. Yeah,
Do you see that
absolutely.
your people, like if they haven't breathed before, how surprised they are with what happens after a session?
Yeah, and I work with lots of different people who have completely different experience levels with any kind of healing. So some of them are brand new, they've never tried anything and it's their first experience, and some of them have tried other modalities. And I think that one of the things that people say is, I can't believe how much better I feel. Like
Mhm.
that's pretty universal. They just feel really good after breathing. And occasionally I will meet somebody who feels more tired. Like they finish a session and then they're really tired. And what I say to them is, this is telling me that your body is tired, that you actually need more rest. And the breath work has given you a chance to rest and taken down the cortisol and adrenaline, your stress hormones, so that now you're actually feeling the fatigue that's been present there all along. And so when somebody leaves a breathwork session really tired, I know, and I really try and be gentle and affirming to them, I know that they're really, really taxing their bodies by not resting. And, that's a stress response and a trauma response where we stay in motion. And so there's so much love for the person that is just going, 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 going. I see you, I've been you, and there's another way.
Yeah. And I think when people start to see that there's another way and feel that there's another way, and what I have found with breath and is that, people just have to experience it.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's hard
absolutely.
to even explain it if they haven't experienced a session.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack with breath work. So what do you think are, if there was two things that you would tell people around giving breath work a try, what would you suggest to them from your
I
experience?
would say try it 3 times before you make a decision around
Mm,
liking it or not liking it. Try it 3 times. And then the other thing that I would acknowledge is that there can be a physical resistance to the first 3 minutes of the active breath. And so expect that. Come in knowing that your body is going to be like, I don't want to do this for the first 3 minutes. And then there's something that happens. And after that 3 minute mark, then your body's like, whoa, this is amazing. And then it's really interesting how, even if it's a complex breath pattern, your body just does it effortlessly after those first 3 minutes. So I would try it 3 times before you make a decision, and try the, know that the first 3 minutes are going to be, your
mm.
body's going to be like,
I
not
like
sure.
that. It's like the 3-3 rule.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. I tell people that, but I like that how you've kind of done it to 3-3 because that's just easy to remember for people. And it is true. I always tell clients that the triactive breath, I mean, I couldn't stand that breath in the beginning, honestly. I was like, I'm never using this breath. This is an awful breath. That I mean, and I say that in session now. I say, but lo and behold, we use it every time because
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
an amazing breath for, in my opinion, so many reasons. And so for people that are listening, it's a three-part breath. And it really physically, mentally, emotionally, that breath is a really great breath. And I use it every session. So, but I tell people I was so resistant to it in the beginning. because I was just resistant. I just wanted to do breath work. I was doing it with my clients in a pranayama kind of way, alternate nostril. But then when I got into these bigger breaths, I was like this feels uncomfortable for me. And so I tell people that because I think like it's okay. It's okay because we do find resistance.
It's
And
okay to be uncomfortable. There's a
Mhm.
difference between being uncomfortable, having your body say, this is not for me.
Right.
Those are two different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, when we are experiencing something that causes us a little bit of discomfort, something that's new, something that's challenging, we'll notice that we might have the thought like, I want to quit this, I want to not do this anymore. And then we'll notice like some mental chatter, talking in our brains or in our minds. When our body is telling us, no, this is not for me, there's a very clear no, I don't want to do this. And so if there's chatter involved, I don't know if I should keep doing this, I kind of want to quit, blah blah blah, and you notice there's a chatter quality, that's just your resistance. That's your response to being uncomfortable. If you feel, sense, hear, no, this is not for me, then I would listen to that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I love that because we want people to, right, have sovereignty over their own body. We want them to feel safe in breath work. So if someone is pushing you to a limit that you are just not comfortable with, you have the right to say no.
That's right. Or
I,
just say no, you just don't do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. I usually tell people in my sessions, if you really are at that no, just either lay where you are or maybe just roll on your side so I know that you're just, you're just. And I have had that happen once at my retreat, and it was a pretty intense breathwork session. There were people that had breathed before, and the energy in Sedona was off the charts. Even for me, I was like, I'm not sure. I don't want to say I'm not sure what's happening here, but I mean, it was like the energy was intense. And we had some people that had been breathed before, so they were more vocal. And then I had newbies. So trying to just keep all that. And I did have one person, I think that a lot came up. So she just kind of rolled on her side, and I went over and I did some energy work on her, and I just allowed her to be in her process
Mhm.
because we want people to feel comfortable. I mean, the whole idea of this is not for us anyway. I know we can speak for this, is not for us to push people past the limits that they're ready to go past or ever go past. I have found that some of my sessions where my music is so slow and deep and the breath is slow and deep is just, it doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be, I can take that 3-part breath and just deepen it and slow it. And the sessions can be just as transformational. It is all what, for me anyway, intuitively when I walk in the room and decide like how's the session going to go today. See, it doesn't have to be intense and fast all the time.
Well, it goes back to what you said about intensity does not equal transformation.
Mhm. Yeah. And the more I breathe, and then when I breathe with other people, which is interesting, right? Because you breathe with other people. And my peer who is my friend who is, in the practicum now, she uses a little less cueing than I do. And her music is a little different. And instead of being my old self and being like, oh, like I think I should move to like, oh, she's doing it different and better. I left that session, remember it, thinking to myself, wow, that was really powerful. And it was really pretty serene and slow. And she used a lot less cueing. I still do the cueing the way I cue, but I just remember leaving that session feeling, well, that was really juicy. And look how different that was.
Mhm.
So, so,
Yeah.
so there's so many of us doing breath work, and want to find someone that you connect with or
Mhm.
try different people because the sessions are always different, the facilitators are different, and what your body is showing up for is ready to experience that day is going to be different each time. Whether you
That's
breathe
right.
with the same person or you breathe with a different person, it will always be different. So just know that you can expect that. And it keeps it interesting and exciting, I think, and taps into different layers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Anything else you want to share with our audience, Brenda? Because I know I've kept you, and I have been so excited to talk all things breath work with you because it is, I don't know, just a transformational modality that really sends us to the next level. So anything you want to share with the
Yeah.
audience?
Well, actually, I have a gift for your audience. So my signature course and healing program is called Second Chapter. This one's for you. I have a an intro course called Inviting Your Yes, and it's energy work to create a life and home you love. And I have that for free for your listeners using the coupon
Oh,
code
thank you.
connection. So that'll be all capital CONNECTION connection.
Oh,
And they can try some energy work to create a home and life you love. My brand is called Your Yes Filled Life, and that's the name of my podcast. And so a lot of my offers have the word yes in them because you know that feeling when everything just goes right and you're like, yes, that's the life that I dream of everybody living full time is that yes filled life. So
I love
come check out that mini course. It's 4 modules and you can get it for free. So I would love
Beautiful.
to.
Thank you so much for sharing that with
Yeah.
the audience. And thank you so much for giving me your time today and talking all things breath work and energy work. And what you're putting out in the world is so beautiful. The more that we continue on this path and it just ripples out and ripples out and ripples out, the consciousness and the world is just going to be a more yes-filled, happy,
Yeah.
connected place. And so I really appreciate you spending time with me today. So thank you so much. So everybody that's listening, check out Brenda and her free offer. And also everything will be in the show notes. So you'll all her contact information and the way to connect and use that code connect to get that free offer from her. And more to come on my membership. I'll be doing some intros for that. And thank you everybody for talking all things at Breathwork today. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you for having me, Sally. This has been amazing. Thank you
Great.
for everything you're doing in the work in the world.
Oh, you too. Thank you. All right, everybody. I'll see you soon next week.